Tina, can you hear me? Hello? Oh, okay.
Hi, Counselor. How are you?
Good, Councilwoman. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Thank you, we're good. Thanks. Councilwoman Castillo, you're on mute. Can you unmute?
Yes, I'm here.
Beautiful. Whew. Okay.
Councilman Aducci.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Harris. Councilwoman Harris is absent. Councilor Miller.
Present.
You have 4 present and 1 absent. You do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, first, I'd like to ask our city solicitor, Eddie Schwab, who is muted. Okay, wonderful. Could you please provide a statement regarding our ability to hold this meeting telephonically?
Certainly, Madam Chair. The Governor has issued an executive order related to the Open Meetings Act. Specifically, she has permitted the use of remote or telephonic software to conduct public meetings, just like this one. So this one is consistent with that order.
Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you kindly read item 1 into the record?
An ordinance and amendment of Chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled the City of Providence Zoning Ordinance approved November 24th, 2014 as amended to change certain text in Article 12 regarding
Take the exhibit first.
the incinerator waste facility use category.
Okay, first I need to add a letter to this item from the CPC dated May 20th to the committee into the record. I'd like to call it 1A. May I have a motion? May I have a motion?
Motion made.
Motion made by Councilman Castillo, seconded by Councilman Narducci, on making that letter 1A. Okay, so this matter, all we need to do tonight is schedule it for a public hearing. Can I have a motion to do so? Motion to schedule a public hearing by Councilman Narducci, seconded by Vice Chair Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, that's one down. Okay, item 2, please, Madam Clerk. Could you read that?
An amendment of the zoning section 1202, principal use standards, amending paragraph E, Compassion Center, Cultivation Center.
Thank you. Okay, so we have another letter from the CPC dated May 20th, 2020, that I'd like to add as an exhibit to item 2. We're going to call it 2A. May I have a motion?
Second motion. Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Council Second. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Miller. All in favor? Aye. I have it.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, and we scheduled the public hearing. Okay.
We need to schedule it. Hearing.
That was just the amendment.
Correct.
May I have a motion to schedule item 2 for a public hearing, please?
Motion.
Madam Chair,
Motion
if I
made.
may,
Yes, sir.
is there a reasoning why this particular item has to be for a public hearing?
That is the directive I have been given. City Solicitor, would you like to opine on that?
My understanding of the zoning ordinance, and I would have to confer with our zoning expert, is that any amendment to any section of any part of the zoning map plan must have a public hearing associated with it.
That is correct.
My recollection is that this matter hasn't, so there. That would be
Right, but again, Madam Chair, if I may, I don't understand this to be and that's what I didn't understand when I heard about Bob Azar getting involved. I didn't understand this to be a zoning change. All I did was understand this to change it, to set in an ordinance stating that we as the City of Providence would not allow compassion centers or cultivation centers to be built or reopened within a 3/4 mile radius of each other from property line to property line, only to preserve our neighborhoods, in other words, let me just say it my way, so they can't put all these cultivation centers or compassion centers into one general neighborhood, or around one general street, and that's what this is looking to do. It's not changing the ordinance. It's just, it's not changing any zoning. It's setting an ordinance for us as the City of Providence.
Madam Solicitor, do we need to send this item, based on your opinion, to a public hearing?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay,
Yes.
we have a motion on the table. I'm looking for a second. May I have a second?
All right, but can I, again, Madam Chair, if I may, what's the reasoning if it's not a zoning change?
Councilman Narducci, we started the voting. Let's get through the voting and then you can ask your questions. I'm looking for a second for this motion. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Miller. Discussion. Councilman Narducci, I understand that you're questioning whether we need to send this to a public hearing. My understanding is it is a zoning matter and it needs public opinion. It needs to go to a public hearing. Bob Azar, are you with us this evening?
I am, Madam Chair.
Bob, could you help us? We've already got an opinion from the solicitor, but I'd like you to opine on that as well. This is a zoning matter. Could you affirm that? And as such, it needs to go to a public hearing?
Yes, it's an amendment to Section 1202 of the zoning ordinance. So that's the text of the document. And the state law is clear that any amendment to the text or the map, whether it's one word or an entire section, needs to go to public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. City Solicitor, based on the testimony by Mr. Azar, do you wish to change your opinion, or are you affirmed that it needs a public hearing?
I affirm.
Okay. Councilman Narducci, we're going to send this to a public hearing.
That's fine. I don't agree, but that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it.
I just want to be, Madam Chair, I would just like to go as voting no.
Okay.
Please.
So noted. So noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we're on 3. Madam Clerk, could you please read item 3 into the record?
An ordinance amendment of Chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled the City of Providence zoning ordinance November 24th, 2014 as amended to change the official zoning map for Plat 32, Lot 314, 1192 West Manchester Street from RP to a C2.
Okay, so this matter also needs a public hearing. Okay, so why don't we go right ahead and schedule a public hearing for item 3. May I have a motion to do so? Vice Chair Castillo makes that motion, second by Councilman Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have it. Okay, that's 3. Now, item 4. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read item 4 into the record, please?
Petition from Dylan Collins, Flyer, Lamar Outdoor Advertising, requesting to amend Article 20, Section 2005, entitled Non-Conforming Signs.
Okay, we have a substitution. So before we go any further with this one, I'd like to get a substitution entered. Let's call it 4A, Madam Clerk? 4A. May I have a motion, Vice Chair? Make that motion to 4A. May I have a second?
Second motion.
Seconded by Councilman Narducci. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Okay. So this matter has had a public hearing. It has been lingering a while. The last time it came before this committee, we had concerns, and we wanted to the committee wanted the opportunity to have it reviewed by the legal department. I understand that exercise took place. I understand that the substitution that we've been presented with tonight is the fruit of that discussion and that labor. Because it is a substitution and because it is a zoning matter, unfortunately, we can't take this matter up tonight for a vote. We have to schedule another public hearing. So, in the interest of everyone's time, energy, and effort, I don't think we need to discuss it any further this evening unless there's a burning desire from the petitioners to do so. If not, we'll just take a vote to send the substituted matter 4A to a public hearing. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Vice Chair, can I have a motion to schedule a public hearing for 4A?
Motion.
Second by, may I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's 4. Tearing away. Okay, item 5, Madam Clerk, could you kindly read that into the record?
Petition from Andrew M. Tice Esquire, AICP, Ursula Tice and Rich, LTD, dated September 29, 2016, requesting a zone change for the property located at 12 Lennox Avenue, Assessors Plat 53, Lot 386, from R-2 to C-1.
Thank you very much. Okay, this one already has a CPC letter attached. CPC has recommended approval. Bob Azar, can you just brief the committee, because it's been a while, on this particular item? Do you want to just give us just a very brief flavor of what this is about and what this does? You are on mute, sir. Can't hear you. Bob, you're on mute?
Sorry about that.
There you go. No worries.
I had another.
Item 5.
Okay, so yeah, this was a petition that came in some time ago, and it was a recommendation to change the zoning of a parcel of land that's just off of Broad Street on Lenox. And at the time, there was about this, about the into the residential neighborhood. It's the property is located between an auto repair business and a multifamily dwelling, and it was the interest of the applicant to develop a single-story commercial building. So the CPC did find the rezoning to be consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan, and they found the change to be consistent with the purposes of zoning. There was some concern about whether there should be alcoholic beverages served and drive-through uses, but other than that, the commission was satisfied that this would be an appropriate zoning change.
Okay. Councilwoman Castillo, I understand that you are the sponsor of this. How can you want to tell us a little bit about it, why it's important to your community?
Okay, so in 2016, these people want to make it something in this place, and I have it a pause for some people in my neighborhood, but there's nothing happening there. The lot is empty. That's a lot of garbage, empty car all the time. They use it for garage for the other business place. We have a lot of business close to this plot. So I believe we need, by the situation we got right now, and I believe we need to start a build, some and the empty lot build, something. And also, they offer a couple of jobs for people maybe in the community, but that's his job anyway. And I support in this moment this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the developer available to speak on behalf of this matter?
Chair, this is Paul Sullivan on behalf of the developer, if I may.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First, again, Paul Sullivan, I've taken over this from prior council. But yes, the lot has been cleaned up, and as Mr. Azar and the Vice Chair indicated, this lot, there's nothing in it right now. This will develop it, and it's a single-story retail facility is envisioned. It will provide local jobs, and it is directly abutting a broad street and the muffler repair shop and the items right along there. So, and as CPC indicated in their letter recommending this change, there are certain restrictions, and there's no issue with the developer with those restrictions.
Okay. How do we incorporate the restrictions into this, city solicitor? Do we just make a recommendation and include the recommendations of, we approve with recommendations of CPC included? Will that work?
That should work as long as there's no change to the actual zoning language.
No, there isn't.
Then that should work, I believe,
Okay.
unless Bob has any prior experience that would contradict that.
So, Mr. Sullivan, you're okay with all of the recommendations of the CPC being applied?
Yes, Your Honor, with it being rezoned to, and the recommendations were rezoned to a C1, no alcoholic beverages, a note about drive-through uses being not permitted, and even though because they would in a C1 zone and a special use permit. And there's also a note that we need to talk to a planner, the last one, about the entertainment license on the abutting properties. So that's the one I'm not certain about how to enact that one, but there'll be a discussion with planning about that. But certainly no drive-through uses and no alcoholic beverages.
So basically 1 through 3, you're amenable to?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. I can see where 4 would be something that would be something you would need collaboration to deal with that. So Councilwoman Castillo, are you in support of moving forward with this?
Yes, I have a question. What about the parking?
Yeah.
We have issues before for the parking. I saw like you have the parking elevation, something I don't.
Yes, Vice Chair, in the plans that were submitted in the packet by the architect, there'd be off-street parking as you come in to the left, and the building would be off to the right, and it'd be along there.
Okay.
I can see that on the plan here. Okay, may I have are you okay?
I made a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to pass with accepting CPC's recommendations 1, 2, and 3 as noted on the letter that's attached from the CPC. Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilman Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you, Chair.
Councilwoman. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Okay, item 6. Please, Madam Clerk, if you could kindly read that into the record.
Petition from Dylan Conley Esquire requesting to amend Article 4, Table 4-1 entitled Residential District Dimensional Standards of the Official Zoning Ordinance of the City of Providence, and also requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessors Plat 28, Lot 932, 193 Benton Street from R3 to R4.
Okay. Thank you. So this matter also was before us before we took a break for COVID-19. And as I recall, the committee asked the petitioner to work with Bob Azar and the councilwoman in the area, the designated area, which is Councilwoman Miller. Did that take place? Did those discussions take place? Councilwoman Miller.
Yes, they did. I'd like to, go ahead. Sorry, Chairman.
Okay, no problem. I'm glad that those discussions took place following up with the committee's request. Can I ask Bob Azar to provide a brief explanation of what this is about and where we're at? Item 6, sir. Bob, you're on mute again.
Yes, thank you. So this is an ordinance in 2 parts. It would modify the regulations of the R4 zoning district, and in a way that would remove any requirements to provide a minimum amount of lot area per dwelling unit. Then it would apply the R4 zoning district to a parcel of land at 193 Vinton Street, Federal Hill, which is currently zoned R3. And so in effect, what this would do for the R4 zone is take away any restrictions on density. So as long as you built within the 3-dimensional allowances of the zone, you could have any number of dwelling units, which would be unusual for residential zones. It would be unprecedented. We do have that. We have lifted that restriction in commercial zones and in downtown, but not in residential zones. At the same time, this zone would be applied to this parcel of land on Vinton Street, which is undersized. It's 2,326 square feet, which is less than half the size of what's required for a buildable lot in the R3 zone. And there's an existing 3-family house on that parcel of land. As I understand it, the proposal was to renovate the building to provide 6 units of housing, smaller units, but not to expand the 3-dimensional boundaries of the building. And this was a concept that I discussed with the petitioner and ultimately came before the City Plan Commission. And what I'll say is that I didn't want to discourage the petitioner for raising this issue and kind of pushing the envelope with respect to residential density, because we know we have issues with the supply of housing, and we are in the process of studying ways to create more housing. And we are in the middle of a process of developing a comprehensive housing strategy. And we should be seeing a draft of that in June. And I know that certain members of the council, I believe, are going to be briefed in the coming days or weeks on where we stand with the study. And so this is a strategy. Zoning is one of those strategies that could be a way to increase the amount of housing in our neighborhoods. So we didn't want to say that this was a bad idea necessarily, but the problem with it right now is we don't believe that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, because the comp plan is very specific about where housing density, higher levels of housing density should go based on community engagement that we had over the years. And it's clear that the comp plan wants to see housing density in downtown, former industrial areas and along commercial corridors, and that what we call infill development or renovation of existing buildings in the interior neighborhoods, according to the comp plan, should be at roughly the densities that are in existence or permitted under the zoning ordinance. So that's sort of the rationale for our recommendation to the CPC, and ultimately for the CPC's recommendation to you to continue the matter so that we can engage in further study of housing. And once we do that, in fact, a viable option.
Okay. I can see the petitioner is signaling to speak. Councilwoman Miller, would you like to speak first, or would you like to hear from the petitioner?
I'd like to hear from the petitioner first. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Okay. Me too. The petitioner, we have Eric Army and we have Dylan Conley, your representative. Who would like to speak on this matter? Dylan?
If I may, Madam Chair, just briefly.
Dylan Conley for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dylan Conley on behalf of petitioner. There's a slight distinction between the presentation given by Mr. Azar and the current status of the proposal. In Mr. Azar's presentation, he discussed it in terms that the proposal was to change the standards for R4 throughout the entire city. That was the original proposal. As a result of the initial CPC meeting, prior to the public hearing held in front of Ordinance Committee, we dropped that request. So the proposal is strictly limited just to this single parcel. It is not at scale across the entire city. So for the sake of the record, I just wanted to address that distinction.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Army, Eric Army?
Yes.
Would you like to talk about what you want to do with this? What are your thoughts? What's the need for housing over there? What would you like to do?
Am I permitted to show slides?
Can I just interrupt you one moment, please? It would behoove me to introduce other council members who have joined, and I apologize. I'm just seeing the names appear on the screen. We have Councilwoman Anthony has joined us. Councilwoman Kerwin has joined us. Councilwoman LaFortune has joined us, and Councilman Salvatore. So, and that's it, I think.
So noted.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Army. Please continue.
Can I present slides like I would for normal boards?
Please. We have to rely on our technical assistance here. Please hold a moment. Proceed.
Thank you. Okay.
Very good. Nice.
Thank you. All right.
I heard a giggle. I love the technology.
It's fun. This is what we're used to doing. So this is fun stuff that gets to do it in this venue as well too. So, Councilman Ryan, appreciate the opportunity to speak. Rest of the committee. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Eric Army. I'm an architect by trade. I'm also a small-scale developer. When I'm not doing rehab projects, Providence G, the Trinity Academy of Performing Arts in downtown, those are the type of work that I do for outside clients. My inside work, if you will, I often look at how do you make cities better by basically changing the building's use to meet the current community demand. It's kind of the question I think about at night, honestly. The image I'm showing is not the subject property. This is just an example of work that we've done. Some of you may be familiar with it. I just want to give you a visual. This is what we do basically. And this was a project that we were the developer of in Oldeyville, which came out great. So what we're proposing to do is basically take a swing at the current housing crisis, honestly. That's my thesis statement, basically. You know, as an architect working with developers in the city, I see most new housing units are honestly commercial construction, which is really expensive to build. And so you end up charging a lot for those. Those are marketed as luxury. $1,500 to $2,000 is entry level for sometimes single bedrooms. So what I'm proposing here is basically I have a strategy to basically add 3 additional units into the housing stock without adding any new building massing. So there's no 5th story, there's no sort of, large overshadowing development that can sometimes be up for critique. And these would be what I would call workforce housing or market rate workforce housing. In this neighborhood, which is, over on the west side, right off of Broadway, a common unit is a 2-bedroom. The smaller ones, $1,500 is not an uncommon rent for those. What we're proposing here would basically be 6 1-bedroom units, renting around $1,000 a month or so. And this would give us workforce housing that we honestly desperately need. We're talking about teachers, nurses, firefighters, recent graduates that don't want to leave Providence because it's a great place. That's sort of the target.
Excuse me, what would the square footage be of the 6 units? Oh, you got it.
There you
You're
go.
good.
Want dimensions of the bedrooms, bathroom sizes? Yeah. So basically, the units are 20 by 25, so 450 square feet, plus or minus, with the whether you count the stairs or the bay window. So yeah, you can see here the existing is 3 to 4 bedrooms each, and I wish this was going to large families that were joining the area. We've rented units in this neighborhood for a number of years. We don't have a lot of calls for demographics there. 3 to 4 bedroom units, fortunately, are often attracting students, which, and there's places for that. I don't know this is the best spot for them. 6 1-bedroom units would be the result. 3 new units. The actual bedroom count would be going down because there's 12 bedrooms in the building now. There'd be 6 when we're done. It's probably going to take parking demand off the street when there's no parking on the site. So
Could you just go through that? Could you say that again, please? Talk about the units.
Yeah.
Explain that one more time. That's very important.
So right now there are 3 units in the building. There's 1 unit per floor, like a traditional triple decker. What we would be doing is basically cutting them in half. So you would end up with 6 1-bedroom units. So 2 1-bedroom units on every single floor. This would be commercial codes. So we'd have sprinkler systems that would solve the means of egress concerns. We'd have commercial fire alarms, which normally wouldn't be required. And by making that change, your total bedrooms, rather than 4 per floor, you're now 2 per floor. So basically the bedroom count's just dropped in half. This is very likely going to reduce the number of occupants total in the building. And it's probably actually going to reduce the total number of cars that are asking for on-street city parking permits. And so take some congestion off of that area as well. And obviously price point would drop considerably as square footage drops with that. So that's the big idea basically. And most of the feedback I've gotten on this has been largely positive. The questions that have come up often are how we do this and sort of how we approach this. And I'm in front of this committee because while, as you can see from this, I am proposing something that does meet a lot of community benefits. Zoning doesn't allow this on a wide scale yet. And I have great respect for the zoning process. A lot of my work is working closely with zoning. My wife has been a city planner for years. And, that large scale process takes time and change. And I actually agree with Bob that, that large scale change we're talking about, that's a great thing for further study. That's a great thing to be looked at long term and really consider all the implications of that. So as we kind of took feedback and looked at that, we said, why don't we propose something that's small, that's incremental, but honestly, it's going to take a swing at the housing crisis. 3 units, more 3 that are going to be more affordable. And the way I look at this is the no action will end up with 3 large 3 to 4 bedroom units renovated here. But I see this as a small incremental change that'll reduce housing unit costs, add 3 new market rate workforce housing with no additional massing in the neighborhood. And this is something that we can do now. We don't need to wait for the due diligence process of creating a large scale change. If you as the council see this as something that's appropriate and limited in just this area, we'd ask that you'd support this as a way to make a change in the housing market today and not having to wait a few years for larger scale change trickle through, that would be available by right.
Thank you, Mr. Army. Councilwoman Miller, you represent the area that this project is proposed in. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, first, can I ask the developer a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just about how you would, or how you think the size of the lot impacts adding additional households. So I really do appreciate the conversation around less bedrooms, but it's still, we're still talking about new households into the building. And I didn't appreciate actually until this picture, like I understood that the lot was undersized, but I didn't appreciate quite how crowded that that spot was until this picture. So can you just speak to that just in terms of
Exactly. Well, it is interesting. There's kind of two ways to look at this. You know, where this is a small lot, and it is. And if this was an empty lot that we were redeveloping, then I think the conversation is about what size building is appropriate for the lot. Is this building too big for the lot? It's consistent with the neighborhood, but it is. There's a small backyard. There's not a lot there. As a designer, I kind of look at this as there's already a really large building on this lot. So we have that, you know, if we do nothing, the building's going to be the same lot. So, there's going to be the same amount of building on this lot there. So when I ask myself, what's going to actually make this building work better on this street, which, you know, we've been working on the street for years, you know, less cars on the street is probably going to be the biggest effect that it has on its neighbors. Honestly, that's just what I've seen as a landlord and as an architect. So that was one thing that I think is a really strong way. By reducing the bedroom count, you're reducing the number of cars. That's probably the biggest inconvenience your neighbors have with additional housing. Parking is usually the big problem that comes up there. With the total number of households, yeah, there will be more individuals that have an individual lease. I don't think it's going to be more people. You know, we've worked in this area as an architect and as a developer, and my office is around the corner. And you know, the 3 to 4 bedroom apartments, those get very full. And this, I think, you know, 6 bedrooms, I think is probably roughly the right bedroom count for the type of density we want to see in this neighborhood. And by doing this into the 6 units, we're actually able to accomplish that. Is that a helpful perspective?
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. So Madam Chair, if I may, I spoke to Eric and also to Bob Azar and got a little bit more perspective on this project. I think and again, I would just echo the sentiment that like this is an important conversation to have, and I think Eric has approached it thoughtfully, and I want to thank him for that, including the changes he made after the initial CPC conversation. My concerns are really around this idea of because there is, at the moment, it seems like the market is supporting more 1 bedrooms and moving away from family units. There is a lot of development of 1 bedrooms, and there has been at least one other proposal in my neighborhood that's similar to this on a much larger size lot, and I won't get into those details, but that proposal was denied by the CPC for similar reasons, right? That it was not meeting density requirements around the comprehensive plan. And so as we think about like this project in within the frame of both the neighborhood and the city, I worry about like setting a precedent that allows moving forward on increasing, I don't know the best, it's not density of people, right? But it's households. So increasing density of households without having like a larger overall strategy on how we increase affordability at every level of income, on how we increase total units of housing. And so I guess that's my main hesitation. And so I do think there's a lot of positives to the project, but I get anxious about going outside of the comprehensive plan to this degree without a larger citywide strategy. And I do understand, and I know timing is important to you as a developer, and I really do appreciate that. But I do understand that a draft of a housing strategy is forthcoming, and there might be an opportunity to pick this up in that context shortly.
Any other council people have any council committee members have any concerns, questions that they'd like to share? Can you put that down so I can? You're pretty good. Any council members? Any other questions? Council members, committee members? No other comments. Okay. I'm actually.
I have a
sorry.
question. Also, I have a question.
Who is that?
That sounds like it's Councilwoman Fortune.
Who is speaking? So let me just. Who is it? Councilwoman. Oh, Councilwoman Fortune. You're breaking up.
Yeah, am I still breaking up? Oh, forget it. I'm breaking up too much.
It's breaking up. It's like a bad sci-fi movie, actually. Okay, so first let me say, it's my opinion that we need more units. We need more housing units. We know that. We've got a housing study going on now. I don't know when we're going to see it. The reason this developer has come forth before us is because they want to build. They're ready to move forward. Can I just ask one question that's unclear in my mind? How does that building stand, Mr. Army? Could you, is it intact, a three-family now? Is it occupied now, or is it empty? Empty, studs, what's the condition?
Good question. It is a three-family, and demolition has been done in anticipation of an approach, which would either be rehabbing it as a three-family or this approach. We have a building permit for demolition.
So you're sitting on go. I guess that's my point.
I'm ready to start tomorrow.
You're ready to go. So I think it's unfair that we're, I don't want to say dragging our feet, but holding this developer who's come to us for relief, holding them out to wait for a study. Committee members, do you have any thoughts? Other, Councilman Narducci, Councilwoman Castillo, any thoughts here?
Madam Chair, maybe a comment.
Sure.
That, because this happens quite often with us in certain committees. I find it odd that the developer and, is already doing work and moving forward in the process without the okay of the committee moving forward. And then, I don't want to feel like I'm being held hostage because, and no disrespect, Mr. Army, that, you guys are moving forward on this project, but our committee has not even made a decision on it yet. That's my comment, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Let's let Mr. Army respond to that.
Thank you, Councilman Narducci. I do appreciate that. Let's see. When we purchased this building, there was some structural and vermin issues that we could not let sit. So we actually did submit for a building permit for a three-family renovation after we purchased it. And actually, we purchased it in August, and 3 weeks later, we got a violation from the city of 3 or 6 things that were deficient. So this building was quickly identified as one with minimum housing standard issues. Because of that, we applied, and we look for properties like that because we want to make the city better. So that was intentional, not to leave it like that. So we couldn't in good conscience leave the existing We couldn't leave it like that. So we had a building permit for a 3-family property because we knew that we could do that by right. We needed that certainty before, and we would never start demo without a permit. I'm an architect. I could get in big trouble for that. And I know better. So the permit we have is for a 3-family to move forward. For better or worse, I'm a small shop here. I've got a small architecture firm. I do maybe a 3-family a year if I'm lucky. I'm not a large developer. I can't carry this for 3 years. September's a really important date. And so we're getting into the point here where we might have to move forward on the 3-family plan, which is approved. It's by right. There's no issue with that. If we can do something better for the neighborhood, we'd love you guys to be a part of it.
Can I ask,
Thank you.
I'm trying to remember, thank you, Councilman. We had a public hearing on this matter. I don't remember any great concern. I remember that there were people in support of this. Is that correct? Have you had discussions with your neighbors? Have you had any issues or concerns presented?
We actually own a building kitty corner to this. So we're invested in this corner as well too.
The 2-family right on the corner of the street, is that?
That is correct. Yep. 92.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find your story compelling. However, I listened to the councilwoman who represents the neighborhood, and I think at this point, I think the best move, I'd like to entertain a motion to continue this matter for further discussion, and we will regroup on it. I've got some more questions that I would like answered. May I have a motion to continue this matter?
Second motion.
Motion made by Vice Chairwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilwoman Miller. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're going to continue this. I would like to ask Mr. Army if you could continue discussions with Bob Azar. I think it's compelling. I think we're holding you up. We need more housing units in Providence. I think there's a demand. And I would like to see, I know that the city is moving to more dense construction. This area seems appropriate. I think there's a need. I think we need to discuss this further, and I would like that to happen sooner rather than later to see if we can't address this. I also am very interested in knowing when the housing study is going to be completed. So I'll follow up on that with you all. Thank you for your time this evening, and I appreciate your testimony. Okay. Where are we on now? Number 7. Okay, item 7. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read item 7 into the record?
In ordinance, amendment of Chapter 23, Street Sidewalk and Public Spaces, Article 1, entitled In General, the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence, by amending sections 23 to 31, use of skateboards on street, highway, sidewalk, pedestrian wall.
Okay. So, do we have a substitute?
Yes, Madam Clerk, we do.
Okay, we have a substitute for this item. So why don't we go ahead and call this 7A? Is that okay?
Yes, Madam Chair.
7A. May I have a motion to accept the substitute as 7A?
Motion to accept.
Motion made by Councilman Narducci, seconded by Councilwoman Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Okay, so this item has been amended. We also have a packet of letters. So this is 7B. A packet of letters, and each of them are in support. Group of letters here. I don't know how many there are. About 10 letters in support from various people to the committee. May I have a motion to call these letters? Everybody has that packet, I'm sure. 7B. Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilman Narducci. I saw the face. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I just have it. Thank you. Okay, so we have 7A before us with letters of support. So who would like to lead the discussion tonight on this topic? Who is the sponsor of this? We have the sponsors present? It's Mass Health
Courier
and Counseling. Okay. All right, so how about, do we have a representative from the police department with us? Michael Correa.
We do, Chairwoman.
Could you
I'm
identify yourself?
It's Michael E. Correa. I'm a major in charge of the Uniform Division for the Police Department.
Okay, wonderful. Could you please talk about this ordinance? Who can explain it? Anybody want to explain it? How about Councilman Correa? Okay. Excuse me. Major Correa. It's a major.
So,
right?
in the summer when the pedestrian bridge opened up, I was a lot of concern, a lot of worry about use and particularly skateboarders. And I took a drive down to Civil, a business on Westminster Street, met a nice young man by the name of Kenny. We struck up a conversation. My idea was to have a conversation, and try to get them to work with me to not skateboard on the pedestrian bridge. That conversation spun into my wife and I meeting Kenny and a gentleman by the name of Will Cornwall. And out of that meeting came this idea that skateboarding was criminalized in the city. And their concern was, there were scooters, there was bicycles, and things had changed. And it seemed, my idea was to extend an olive branch or build a bridge with a community that the police departments had a lot of friction over the years. There hasn't been a good history. And it was kind of to give a little bit. I would help them, I thought, and hopefully they'll help the city with keeping skateboarders off the bridge, off the World War I Memorial, and using the newer facilities and also just the roadway. I mean, in my 30 years, I've seen skateboarders actually commuting downtown to the city on skateboards. So that was kind of how I got involved. And that's why I'm here tonight lending my support to decriminalize skateboarding.
Great. So from what I know of this, you're correct. The law in the books is a little archaic, particularly since, and for everyone's edification, I don't know if you've got the ordinance in front of you, but basically what is on the books states that no person shall ride a skateboard on any street, highway, sidewalk, or pedestrian mall within the limits of the city. Personal use of skateboards will be allowed in designated spaces. That's the old one, isn't it? That's not what's on the books.
Right.
Sorry. So the current law is no person shall ride a skateboard on any street, highway, sidewalk, or pedestrian wall within the limits of the city. So essentially, skateboards are banned in the city. And you are right, Major, that is a bit archaic. So this ordinance change is an attempt to modernize it, if you will, and also to recognize, from what I understand, that the council has created a number of skating parks and recreation facilities, and we have recreation trails. And so this is essentially allowing skateboards to no longer be outlawed, to avail themselves of the lawfully of the designated skateboard parks in our rec centers, our recreation areas, excuse me. It does limit them, though, to no skateboard in Water Place Park, Memorial Park, the Providence River pedestrian bridge, and such other locations that the city council may from time to time designate through installation of street signs that clearly identify the area within which skateboarding is prohibited. Now, there's also another area, so that's pretty clear. I think everybody gets that. So there is a paragraph A that says, use of skateboards shall be permitted in all areas in a manner as permitted for operation of a bicycle under further restriction under the section 2331. So just for the benefit of the committee, Policy Director Bouchard, could you kindly explain that? What does that mean in real terms?
Yes, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So to kind of follow up on Major Correa's point, the concept here was to equate skateboards and bicycles. Bicycles are very well governed when it comes to state and local law. The state law for kind of public information is Rhode Island General Law 3119, which sets out the requirements for bicycle use in the state of Rhode Island, provides bicycles with the ability to operate on public streets and roadways, as well as sidewalks. In this case of the city, would also include bike lanes, obviously. In addition to that ability, the city has on its books certain restrictions related to the operation of bicycles, the manner in which they're operated, and maintains that within our city parks, they're only utilized on the driveways. So Section A of this proposed ordinance would mean that a skateboard can be utilized on the bike lanes and within the same manner as any bicycle could operate within the city of Providence.
Okay, that's pretty clear. Etsy, our solicitor, is our solicitor with us? Yes.
Yes.
Everybody's picture keeps moving on the screen, so I'm looking at you and then you move, and I'm like, where'd they go? City solicitor, have you reviewed this item?
I have gotten the opportunity to take a look at it today. Everything that your director of policy mentioned is accurate. There are already state laws on the books. There are already limitations with regard to bicycle use within the city. This seems like an extension of, city council's police power and the municipality's police power to regulate or deregulate skateboards.
Okay, so what this is doing, based on testimony, no skateboards in Water Place Park, no skateboards in Memorial Park, no skateboards in Providence River pedestrian bridge, which started this whole thing, right, Major? And then such other locations as may be deemed appropriate from time to time by council designation. But first and foremost, it essentially makes a skateboard regulated in the same fashion as a bicycle. So a skateboard would be allowed on our streets in a bicycle lane. Is that correct? Major, are you okay with that? And the reason I ask is my immediate concern when I saw this, first of all, I think it's a good thing. I commend you for working so hard and taking this approach. I think it's a good idea and it's a good piece of legislation. My only concern is when I first looked at this, I was concerned about putting youngsters or encouraging youngsters on skateboards in our streets. So I get that there's a desire for people of all ages to ride a skateboard, use a skateboard to get to work. I get that. And so using the skateboard as a commuter device is a little different than a recreational device. So are you comfortable with that use? So the use of a skateboard as a commuting device in our bicycle lanes, are you comfortable with that? Does that trouble you in any way?
That doesn't trouble me. I don't see great numbers. Most of my testimony on that was based on anecdotal and observations. So I'm not greatly troubled, no more than I am with bicycles, people that use bicycles to commute.
Okay. I just wanted to get that on testimony because that's the first thing I thought of. And then the other thing I was saying to a colleague that I was concerned when looking at this that, so commuting makes sense to me. If that's a vehicle of transportation that somebody would choose, I think that makes tremendous sense, that they avail themselves of our bicycle lanes. My concern was youngsters on these skateboards in our streets. And I couldn't get by that. And then somebody said, well, then they would be riding to school. They would use their skateboards in school, to get to school. It still troubles me. How do you feel about that?
I don't know the great number. I mean, my sense is that there's probably some young kids already commuting to school with skateboards.
I'm sure there are.
I'm not greatly troubled by it. I think it's like anything else. It could be a work in progress. I'm not saying that 18 months down the road from here, we don't, I haven't created a problem. That wasn't certainly the goal of this. But I think with some education, and I think it's very workable.
So I have two beautiful adult children, and my oldest boy actually is an avid skateboard enthusiast, and as well as a bicycle enthusiast. And he actually rode his skateboard. He used his skateboard to get to and from high school. So I never asked him how, but he was always safe, and he got back and forth okay. So I can see that happening. Committee members, any comments on support, against, thoughts? What are you thinking? Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I just wanted to thank the Major, and also I think that Will is on the phone here, listening in. And so I just want to thank both of them for
I see him.
And Kenny.
And Kenny too. Great, yeah. I just wanted to lift up, like, they've been
I'd love to let him talk.
Yeah, they've been advocating for this for many months, and it's been a lot of persistence and patience and a thoughtful process.
Great. I see Kenny and Will are here. We'd like to ask them to join us if they're so amenable. So Kenny, you're turned on, and Will, you're turned on. Who would like to speak? Any comments? What are your thoughts about this?
Kenny, do you want to start?
Kenny's muted. Kenny, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, everyone.
Yep, beautiful. Kenny, you started this whole thing.
Don't really know where to begin, but I do like the point of kids skating from and to school and using that for transportation. That's a good point to point out. But I think with like proper education and just awareness, it can be something that can be like definitely worked on. I know myself, I used to skate to school and I would skate to work now, and I mean, safety is obviously always a point since I'm on a skateboard and it's my life,
So were you riding on that pedestrian bridge on that skateboard of yours?
No, because
the Major said no. The Major said no, you weren't.
Yep.
I'm being silly. Kenny, I want to thank you very much for basically for stepping forward and having a genuine conversation with the Major that helped bring forth the arcane ordinance that we had on the book. So thank you for your willingness to participate. How about Will?
Mr. Kenny, can we
please
have your last name for the record?
Would you be willing to give us your last name, Kenny, for the record?
Sure, it's Kenny Borge.
Kenny, thank you. Let's hear from Will.
Hello, all. Thanks for taking up this business. It's very important to us. My name is Will Cornwall, for the record. For me personally, it's a matter of safety, and it's a matter of skateboarders having solid legal standing to use the city streets. Some years back, a friend of mine was struck right outside the public safety building, and
although the driver was clearly at fault, his civil lawsuit was dragged on and on because he was on a skateboard and not a pedestrian or a bicyclist. Whereas if he were on a bicycle, or if he was walking across the street, it would have been a more open and shut case. So I think that in this era where we can all agree that distracted driving is increasingly an issue for other drivers and for pedestrians and cyclists, I think it's just good legislative housekeeping, really, to recognize that skateboarders are on the street, and that there are also expectations for us to do so reasonably.
Wonderful. Kenny, did you want to say something else?
Oh, no. I just had an epiphany, so sorry for my interruption.
No.
Hi, this is Kat Kerwin. I just wanted to say really quick, thank you.
Councilwoman.
Hi.
Excuse me, just hold on one second. So Kenny and Will, I want to thank you very much for your contribution here. And I also want to say, Major, I really commend you. You know, so many times the police tell me that, you know, they stop and they give warnings or they talk to people, and it takes time from your day, and it's extra effort. And you particularly are always open, willing to try to find a solution or to make sense out of our laws. So this is a perfect example of you doing that in a real meaningful way. So I think this is a great program, and I just wanted to thank Will and Kenny for joining in the discussion on this topic. I really appreciate it. Committee members, does anybody have any questions at this point? And then anybody? Committee members? Council members, Councilwoman Kerwin, what would you like to say?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted to echo everyone's sentiments of gratitude for Will and Kenny, especially Will, who is a Ward 12 resident. He has been just an absolute pleasure to work with for the skating community. He kind of piloted getting a skate park on Smith Hill and Kazarian, and he does so much for the skate community in Providence and for the Smith Hill community. So we're extra thankful for him, and I just wanted to make sure they both get the credit they deserve. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilwoman. So, Will, have you ever been to the Fifth Ward?
I have. I know it very well. I used to play Little League at Fargnoli.
Oh, wow. So you're a son of Providence for sure.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So this is really a good story. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance on the substitute 7A as amended? Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo. Are you making that motion?
Yes.
Motion to approve, yes. Councilwoman Castillo, who'd like to second? Hello, I need a second. Second by Councilwoman Miller. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. The matter passes. So this is going to go to the full council. Kenny and Will, I would invite you to join us. I'd love to meet you both. And of course, you, Major, you know your way well around the council chamber, but I think this is a good story. And we have a lot of old laws on our books, and a lot of times it just takes someone to say, hey, this is wrong, let's fix it, and go through the governmental process. So congratulations to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what else?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
John.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike.
Thank you, Major. Really appreciate it, sir.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
What are we on now, honey?
Number 8. Is that 22? XX2.
Okay, we are on item 8. Could you please read that into the record?
An ordinance and amendment of Article 22 of Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled Administration, amending Section 2 to 350.
Okay, let's have, who was our sponsors? Councilwoman Miller on the committee. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the background of this? What is the genesis of it?
Yeah, I would love to.
What are you trying to accomplish here?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I was actually approached by Director Fortunato about the idea for this, and I understand it's been a long time coming. And what the ordinance does is it creates an advisory committee that would help facilitate a public process and a public conversation around commemorative works. And so the way the ordinance defines it, you know, we're talking about memorials, statues. Let's see, the way the ordinance defines it is, I thought, really well worded, so I don't want to mess that up. Intended to express or reflect the collective memory of an individual, group, or event, and which are accepted by the city and installed or located on city property with city permission. So it's public art, it's collective work, and what this ordinance does is it creates a process to have a public conversation about that. And so, you know, one of the ways this came up before I joined council, for example, there was a monument to Verrazano over on the east side that got moved to Federal Hill with the advocacy of Federal Hill community groups, which is great and appropriate. My sense is, and I'm hoping the director will share some of this too, is that our city has kind of grown up around a lot of monuments. And so we want to place those works in context. We want to provide a public process and have a group of people who are facilitating a way for a thoughtful discussion, and both to interpret, you know, some things that might be controversial, to lift up the history of them, and to vet new proposals.
Thank you. We have Stephanie Fortunato here with us. Would you like to talk a little bit about this this ordinance?
Yes, good evening, Chairwoman. How are you?
Wonderful. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. I know it's nice to see everyone's face.
I usually get to see you at budget time.
Yeah. Well,
nice
the Zoom will have to serve.
So what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, so the department has been working on this probably now for more than 4 years. It started when we were doing our public art master planning process. And at that time, we thought that we could look at commemorative works as we were developing the policies for public art. But it became clear right away that we really need to take into consideration commemorative works through a special process, that the social and cultural merit of each individual marker really needs considered attention, and that we need to bring together experts and community members to think about whether or not the memorial or monument or marker that is being proposed is relevant to our contemporary community and the ways in which it is relevant. So the ordinance proposes a process, a transparent process by which we would have a review. So for existing memorials and markers, that was a good example with the Verrazano monument, that community members could say, hey, this monument's in my neighborhood, you know, I is it here? And could bring together a community process to really understand how that commemorative work made its way to the public realm. And then to have a conversation about whether that is still relevant to the contemporary community. The other thing that happens sometimes is that groups propose monuments and memorials, and they propose them as donations. And so the city has many, I mean, that's actually how most of our commemorative works have become part of the collection, is that they were donated to the city at some point. But what often happens is that they then become almost orphans, in which that there's no department that is responsible for their care and maintenance over time. And so some of them then fall into disrepair. So this process would also allow for groups who want to commemorate our collective memory by putting in a commemorative work, that they would apply for that. And then this group would do a careful review of the social and cultural merit of this before it got too far in the process, before groups had spent a lot of money developing an idea that ultimately the city would not be able to accept. And so the way that we've structured the committee is to have it, members appointed, or we're proposing to have members appointed by the mayor's office, by city council, by the Art and City Life Commission, who is they oversee the public art. Then to have 2 ad hoc positions, so that way there can be experts who are brought into the conversation depending on what the memorial or marker was commemorating. And then the city archivist and the director of art, culture, and tourism would both have ex officio roles with this committee. So working together to help make sure that the process was given context through the larger city cultural history. So the archivist would prepare a briefing paper that would help support the applications and help panelists to orient themselves to the whatever is being proposed to be commemorated.
Have you worked with the archivist, the council archivist before on other matters?
We have, yes. In fact, we last year partnered together on a residency. We had artists who created works they use the archives as the basis to inform those works.
He's wonderful. Caleb runs a great shop, does great work for us. So I'm pleased to know that you rely on his expertise. Council members, committee members, any thoughts, questions? Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you. There's one thing I forgot to emphasize. I know it's important to the co-sponsors as well, that this creates a framework for the discussion, right? It's still an advisory, like the opinion or however we're going to frame the decision they make. It's advisory to the council and to other bodies. So I just want to make that clear. It's not a binding process. So thank you.
Advisory committee, jam-packed with skilled people to look at our monuments and give them the respect that they're due, to maintain and honor them as appropriate. So I think it's great. My only suggestion, committee members, any committee members, council members have any comments? Okay. My only comment is, I know how critical our archivist, Caleb, is to your work. And my only thought when I saw this was I would like to see the archivist actually elevated. He can certainly serve as an ex officio, but I'd like him to be added as a voting member. So my only thought here is to reduce the 2-member appointment and have just a 1-member appointment with Caleb holding the other voting member. I think his work is so critical. You rely on it for everything that you're doing. And I just think that would be a good amendment. Can I get my council committee members to think about that or talk about that? Do you think that that's something that you could support?
Absolutely.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I would definitely be willing to support that.
Perfect. Anyone else? So is that a motion that you're making to make that amendment?
I'll make a motion. Yes.
Okay. Anyone second that motion?
Second.
Beautiful. Okay, so we have a motion to amend, as I stated. Do you have that change? And second, made by Narducci, seconded by Councilwoman Miller. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, so we have now an 8A? 8 is amended. Okay, any further discussion on this noble piece of legislation before us? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve 8A as amended?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Council Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by Narducci and Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Narducci. Ayes have it, motion passes. Okay, we're just blasting through here. Everybody with me? Thank you very much, Stephanie, for all your hard work. You're amazing. We're blessed to have someone of your skill in our city. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item 9, Madam Clerk, could you kindly read in the record?
An ordinance and amendment of chapter 23, streets, sidewalks, and public places, article 1, entitled in general of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence by adding section 23 to 38, emergency snow parking ban.
Okay, this has been hanging around. I think the snow has melted on this one. At the request of the sponsor, I've been asked to continue this matter indefinitely. May I have a motion?
Second motion.
Motion made by Council Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by Councilwoman Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Item 9 is continued indefinitely. Item 10, Madam Clerk, could you kindly read into the record?
An ordinance and amendment of chapter 17 of the Code of Ordinances of the Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled Officers and Employees, amending section 17 to 33 Code of Ethics.
Okay. Anyone here want to talk about this?
Hi, Madam Chair. It's Councilman Salvatore.
Hello, Councilman Salvatore. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Great.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Good.
What would you like to say about this, sir?
So, as many of you know, several iterations of this ordinance have been introduced in the past. It is my hope that we can finally get some movement on this version. What this ordinance aims to do is, one, prohibit any member of the city council who has been indicted for a felony from holding a leadership position within the city council. When I say leadership, these are the elected positions by the entire council. So the president of the council, the pro tem, and also committee chairs and vice chairs. In addition to that, if a member of the council is indicted and then found not guilty or charges have been dropped against that individual, that member of the council has an opportunity to retain that leadership position, and it's typically within 6 months. So again, I know that there were several versions of this that were passed around over the last several years. Certainly thought then, and I strongly believe now, moral and an ethical obligation to move this piece of legislation. This is not aimed at any one individual, but I will say is that during the last term, it was extremely unfortunate that we had the two highest ranking members of the city council brought up on felony charges. And it was discouraging to see that one of those individuals would not step down from his position, forcing a supermajority of the council to take a vote of no confidence, essentially forcing that individual to resign from his presidency. So again, it's not aimed at any one individual. I'm happy to know that there are no current members of the council who have been brought up on felony charges or who have been indicted for any wrongdoing. But again, I think moving forward, so we can remove or mitigate what has happened in the past, this is an opportunity to do so with a clean start. So I'm happy to entertain any questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Well, first I'd like to say thank you for your confidence in the current body that we don't have anyone that is subject to any indictments, which is so, but can you just help me on, so this has been hanging around. There's been some amendments. This was originally from Councilman Zuria and Yurden. Were you an original sponsor, or are you on this as it has evolved?
No, I believe I was a sponsor on the original amendment that was introduced, and obviously I reintroduced it last year.
Okay. So to me, this is about the body of the council itself and how we govern ourselves, and I believe we have rules of the council that we go by, as well as the charter. And I think that's been the hesitance on this matter all along. And as you had stated, when we had a challenge in recent history, the rules guided our action, and we took appropriate action. Is there council members, committee members, would you like, anybody have any thoughts, concerns, questions on this that they'd like to share with us now?
Madam Chairwoman?
Sure, Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you. So I guess I have one, I want to thank Councilman Salvatore for bringing this matter up and commitment to this issue. I guess my major concern with this item is the idea around, so one, I'm having a little bit of a hard time articulating it, so forgive me.
If you'd like me to circle back, why don't you take a moment and think about what you'd like to say? And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our solicitor for thoughts on, this is what I would consider kind of a legal matter. I know we have an ethics commission at the city. We have an ethics commission at the state. We have rules of the city council. How does this fit in? What are your thoughts on this matter?
Certainly, the city council can modify the ordinance, including the ethics ordinance, however which way it deems fit, including to make modifications to regulate itself. Whether or not this would be the appropriate section, I mean, there are other sections that do relate to city council. It could go there. There are, this is put into the ethics section here, and our ethics committee wouldn't be necessarily enforcing this, just because our ethics committee really can only, our ethics commission can really make advisements or opinions as to whether or not a particular matter should be prosecuted by a prosecutor in municipal court. So this would be a bit of a, not necessarily misplaced, but just an interesting extension of the current code as it sits. And to the extent that this is an ethics related matter, whether or not an individual with a felony charge is behaving arguably ethically, that would be fine here as well. Something like this could also fit well with any amendment to the current city council rules and regulations. You do, as you mentioned earlier, Madam Chair, you do have city council rules that do control and perhaps clarification in there as to what would happen or should happen when an individual is charged with a felony. That might be a place that could go there. But certainly this is something that can sit here. There's no prohibition against it, and city council, as you are a legislative body, can pass legislation regulating yourselves, and this could fit there.
Okay. Councilwoman Miller, would you like to, thank you very much, Etsy. Would you like to jump in now? Are you ready?
I am, thank you. I lost my train of thought. So I think that my primary concern comes from the idea of if someone is charged with a felony, that we're taking action on a charge, right? And we have in court a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. I think whether or not that individual will face like a pretty harsh conversation in their community and publicly is a little bit outside of us, a little bit outside of this body. And so I just have, that's my primary concern. I think there are rules and action that the council can take up to and including a vote of no confidence. I think there's other measures that the council can take. And so taking action on the presumption that a charge means guilt, right? Which is in a lot of ways how this reads to me. And that's just my primary concern with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said, Councilwoman Miller. Anyone else? Committee members?
Madam Chair, I would also like to thank you. I would also like to agree. I think we have the ethics policies and the ability to do what the body did do by removing that certain individual back when this all went down. So I don't think there's any reason to put any type of ordinance in to make it any different. Well, not different, but the same as we already have with the power of the council. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Ducci. Anyone else have any questions, thoughts, concerns like to express?
Madam Chair,
No.
Councilman Salvatore again.
Councilman Salvatore, please.
If I could just respond to a couple
Absolutely.
of comments that have been made regarding the city council rules. The city council rules require the caucus to elect the majority leader and the deputy positions, and in other positions like the whip position. It's the city's charter that mandates the election of the president and the pro tem and sets the term for chairs and committee vice chairs. So in terms of the city council rules, they wouldn't necessarily apply to the president and the pro tem positions, since it is the charter that is the vehicle for electing those positions in the length of their terms. Also, it shouldn't have taken a supermajority of the city council for a past president to step down from his position.
Excuse me. Can everybody please make sure their phones?
What's going on?
I'm only asking that everybody mute their phones because of the background noise. Councilman.
Thank you.
That's all.
Councilman Narducci. We're going to give you a police badge. You're the Zoom police.
Thank you.
Councilman Salvatore, I'm sorry for this
That's
interruption.
okay. Thank you, Councilman Narducci. Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, if the individual who has been elected to the president or the pro tem's position or a chairmanship, that individual, upon being found not guilty, if that were the case, would reassume those positions. So there's a mechanism in place. And look, there's a broad range of constituencies who support this measure. And again, it's not aimed at any one individual. And the fact that I've heard from constituents, not only in my own ward, but across the city, when a lot of what happened during the last term was happening within the body, it was frustrating to see that members of the tax base in our constituents lose faith in our legislative body within the city of Providence. So again, I hear and appreciate the concerns that have been brought up, but again, there's a mechanism in place for the election of president pro tem and political leadership positions, if you will, and those positions, for the reasons that I've stated, are not included in this ordinance.
Thank you. Okay. Committee members, what would you like to do on this? Do I have a motion? What would you like to do? What's your pleasure? Do you want to continue this matter indefinitely? It's been hanging around quite a while. Do you feel it has merit? What would you like to do?
I want
to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Councilman Narducci? I'm struggling to hear. Councilman Narducci?
Yeah, me too. I was getting a lot of echoing. I would just support Councilman Castillo. I think she said that she wanted to continue it indefinitely.
Okay. Motion made to continue indefinitely. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next. Item 11, please. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read that item into the record?
An ordinance amendment of Chapter 14 licenses, Article 5, entitled Jewels and Other Amusements of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence by adding Section 14 to 234, immediate 1-year moratorium on any use 2 a.m. operating entertainment or liquor license along Atwell Avenue and adjoining streets in Federal Hill.
Okay, Councilwoman Miller, you've moved over. I can't keep, it's like a game. Yeah. I looked up and you're in a different location. Yeah. Councilwoman, could you kindly explain this to us and what is your pleasure on this matter?
Absolutely. I want to just, so this came up at a moment in time when there was a lot of violence on Federal Hill. I think we remember that. What it did I just want to thank my colleagues here tonight and also in the rest of council, because what happened from the first promotion of this ordinance was like a really publicly vetted citywide conversation around nightlife in Providence. That's still ongoing. Chairman Taylor in the Public Safety Committee right now has a lot of the proposals that I think will help keep residents and participants in nightlife safe when we resume nightlife. And so I want to thank everyone here for supporting this problem in the neighborhood and ask that we continue it indefinitely.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Miller. I know you did a lot of work on this. Okay. One more. Item 12. Please, Madam Clerk, could you kindly read that into the record?
An ordinance and amendment of Chapter 23 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places, Article 1, General, Section 23-6, opening, excavating, etc., on, in, over, or under public roadway or sidewalk, as amended to add certain text regarding project coordination, status, and overall communication.
Okay. Do we have one of the sponsors here? Oh, Councilwoman LaFortune? Would you like to speak about this item?
I'm having a hard time with it's freezing.
Is there another council member who is willing to speak on this item while our colleague fixes her communication issue?
Madam Chairwoman, could I
Yes,
just
please.
Thank you. Councilwoman LaFortune, you can call in on the phone and maybe that might be easier.
Thank you, Councilwoman Miller, for the technical assistance. Anybody else want to talk about this item? How about our solicitor? What do you know about item 12?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first took a look at this when it was posted as part of the agenda. I don't believe anybody in my office has been consulted in either drafting or reviewing it. Upon first blush, it does appear to require that the Director of Public Works purchase or develop some type of software as a service, a type of project, an integrated project management system that would allow for public and private use, public to the extent that members of the public should be able to look at it and track projects within the city, and private, and not really private, more internal system where DPW could upload or other contractors could upload and modify information to be shared to the public on it. Certainly it's within the right and realm of the City Council to require that certain departments behave in certain manners or to acquire or make available certain pieces of information. I mean, certainly there are ordinances that require different departments issue notices or issue advisory opinions or issue other types of recommendations. And so this would fall seemingly under that power to do so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm back, Chair.
Shaw, you're back. Councilwoman LaFortune, tell us about this.
Hopefully I
What's your
don't get
intention
frozen. So
here?
I'll just give you a quick, just in case I'm having some issues with I don't know what's going on. Maybe my internet is just over everyone using it all at the same time. So basically there's been a lot of issues throughout the city in my community where there's been a lack of coordination on projects, whether it's any type of side work or on the streets where perhaps like a utility company might do some work, and then after we've invested in pavement on that same road. So there's just been a lack of coordination. There's a lack of transparency in terms of understanding when the work is going to be done. In fact, we had a project that occurred, and I tried to get information so I could send out to community members to let them know that your street might be blocked, but we couldn't even get a concrete date of when the project would start. Basically, what they said, it will happen within these few weeks, which is challenging, especially when you live in communities where there are people who are who require public transportation or someone to pick them up. But more importantly, our city's losing money when we're not coordinating projects. When we invest in some sort of sidewalk.
There she goes.
I think we gotta continue this. Yeah. How about Councilwoman LaFortune? We are struggling, we can't hear you. It's like a bad sci-fi motion, but sci-fi movie. Can you mute her, please? Okay. All right, committee. Out of the interest, is she back?
Is better communication.
I make a motion to continue.
Second.
Motion made to continue. Do I have a second? Second by Councilwoman Castillo. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Councilwoman LaFortune, if you can hear us, we are continuing because we can't hear you. And we want to give your ordinance the respect that it deserves. So let's continue this and we'll deal with it another time. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear us. No further business on our agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Councilman Narducci, seconded by Vice Chair Castillo. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you all. Good work.
Good night.
Good night.